I think this is a video in some way you've all been expecting from me. Ever since I made my first Among Us video, people have been commenting constantly expecting me to make some sort of video regarding the game's inevitable downfall. Now, all of that was back when the game was still popular, yet quite predictably here we are. And while Among Us came out and absolutely crushed its original expectations, it has seemingly failed to be anything more than just a minor trend, and nowadays the title feels more like a past tense topic. But why? Okay, well, before we discuss so many negatives, why did this title get so popular? Well, Among Us was a game built back way before it got popular, and it had quite little success. The game was originally a local multiplayer mobile game, and throughout the years of the game's existence, the developers have made the at the time unwise decision to keep developing the failing game, adding a couple new maps, full online capability, and PC ports. Now, despite this game's lack of success, these new updates would prove quite rewarding, as Among Us was noticed by Twitch streamers and YouTubers, naturally giving the game tons of potential to explode, especially since it was a multiplayer game during a pandemic. The concept was nothing special or original. It was basically a murder mystery video game, something that has existed as party games before, along with other video games years previously like Deceit. This game gaining traction is something I'll talk about more later, but the game's blow up was more or less luck of the draw, with the pandemic being in full swing, and with other smaller games like Fall Guys gaining tons of traction around the same time, causing a perfect potion of success. Now, I don't want to discredit Among Us, because the game is super well built, and out of all these integrations of the same murder mystery style game, I would say Among Us to this day has done it the best. Now, this game was pretty much the biggest game of 2020. It pretty much single-handedly took over the entire gaming scene, and everybody had to play the game. The title was so big, it ended up even creating new careers for YouTubers like Corpse, causing absolute massive growth throughout its time. The only real issue with Among Us is that it just didn't last. But while it's easy to just say that and move on, I feel like I could go a bit deeper than that. But when I say that, today I want to talk about the biggest red flag and debatable killer of the game overall, that of which being this game's public and open lobbies. See, playing with friends was a lot of fun. However, what makes multiplayer games so much fun long term is the ability to play with friends and others around the world, which conveniently enough was the feature Among Us ended up implementing as they added general online play. But let's just say that this game was not designed with public lobbies in mind at all. This game is very much a mind game and almost entirely psychological. So it's really just a quest of trying to play the game, keep your eyes peeled for any evidence of killers among the ship, and debatedly most importantly, trying to sniff out the imposters through what they say, along with how and when they say it. So when trying to play with friends, this works super well, obviously. Everyone is presumably in a call together and is able to play the game as it's meant to be played. But there was one underlying issue. Among Us never had any kind of voice chat option built in, meaning unless you were in a call with the people you were playing with, there was only one form of communication, which was through the chat system. So basically, inherently trying to play in any sort of public lobby or even just with anybody without a mic was 100 times less fun. What was also annoying was the fact that this game was really only ever fun in large groups. And while Among Us has made some good updates like expanding the max amount of players, regardless, trying to get a lobby of like 10 people together for the best experience is the hardest thing to do sometimes. And if you were to try and add random people to the lobby for a larger match, the previously mentioned issues persist. Now, while this was a pretty massive issue, it was something about the game that was entirely conceptually flawed, and it would have been hard for Innersloth to actually fix this issue without adding some sort of voice chat. But they did make some updates to the chat system, one of which in particular single-handedly ruining public lobbies entirely, that of which being the implementation of quick chat systems. So basically, early 2021, Innersloth decided that they would force tons of players on consoles and other criterias like age to use preset messages rather than being able to type out what they wanted to say. Now, when I say chat was bad before this, it got so much worse, because at least before, the players could discuss among each other and determine their decisions based on such. However, with this quick chat system, everyone just became personalityless bots who can only give some of the most basic callouts, which makes the lack of psychological mystery in public lobbies rise to the max. All of these public lobby issues are pretty crucial because realistically, while the game is still to this day a lot of fun in large groups, 90% of the time if you want to play Among Us without a whole Discord ready to play with you, you're either stuck with dealing with all of these issues repeatedly, or you end up doing the most likely scenario and just not play. which of course ended up reflecting in the game's player numbers and reputation. Now, there is an argument that these quick chat features were necessary for playing console among other situations, because realistically trying to type with a controller is dreadful, which to that I say yes, it would make things more convenient. However, leading into what I believe is the larger point, all that shows is that this game is incredibly flawed in its entire concept. Despite the murder mystery genre of games being relatively constrained around the basic rules of trying to find out who the imposters are, there are usually many creative ways to do it. Some examples I can think of is Deceit, where you try to find who's the alien through an FPS horror style game, or even Secret Neighbor, which is about trying to find a child who can secretly turn into a neighbor. Basically, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of ways to go about building these types of games in successful and manageable ways for console ports and public lobbies, leading to much more replayable games. However, Among Us, at least when trying to make the game online, took a very interesting approach with trying to make typing a key part of the game, which caused all these issues. In all reality, they could be easily fixed by adding a voice chat, but the whole reason they took away the ability to type in the first place was to protect younger players who took up majority of their audience. Now, with all this being said, the issues that I had with this game were things that were prevalent even when the game first came out. So realistically, let's go back to the question of why did the game even get popular? Well, as we probably know, this game, as mentioned, got popular from YouTubers and streamers playing the game. And when anybody thinks about a huge community around Among Us, that's what people are usually referring to. The massive amount of people playing this game for content on their channels, or more importantly, the even bigger amount of people wanting to watch it. This game is one of those games that's a lot more fun to watch than to actually play. Because we've mentioned that when you have a full lobby with your friends, the game is a lot of fun. So naturally, when these streamers and YouTubers gather around with 9 other of their friends to play matches, communicate, and make humor out of the game, it's very entertaining. I mean, 99% of the time when somebody makes a video on Among Us, it's them playing the game with all their friends, because that's just how the experience was originally designed. Which is prevalent in the fact that it was originally made to be a local multiplayer game only, so at launch the game was designed to only be played with a bunch of people in the same room. So with that being said, when playing the game while intended, the game's done incredibly well. And realistically, if millions of people are watching these videos, naturally the game will become more popular. But while its rise to fame and success was unbelievably strong at first, naturally these games are going to decrease in viewership as watching the same people do the same things would get old. And at that point, it would be up to the developers to both keep the game interesting for content creators and develop a game that's actually fun to play. To which they ended up doing neither. So far, the game has added incredibly minimal updates, with the only notable release since its late 2020 blow-up being the addition of the airship map, making content relatively scarce. And as we've been talking about for the whole video, when the game is 100 times more fun to watch than it is to play, once the game's longevity became up to the playability of the title, that's where things have inevitably gone wrong. But with all this being said, we have to remember that yes, this game is in the red right now and entirely failed at keeping the success they got long term. But there is at least the silver lining of the fact that this game was a small title, developed by an incredibly small team, and was being developed with a negative return if anything before its blow up. So while things aren't going well right now, the game clearly is a project the team was just doing for the passion of making video games. And all this success is just an extra thing they've gotten from all their hard work. Hopefully, this also could be evidence as to why we could expect this game to receive support for a long time, no matter how big or small the game gets, and maybe we can even see a revival of the title sometime soon. But this point is just what I think the biggest reason for the game's downfall was. To see my other takes on this title's drop in popularity as it happened, check this video here. Sub so I can hit 100k, and peace.